Peace. I'm just now leaving the masjid. Man, I wish Moors knew who they were and didn't try to fabricate things to replace our culture and to replace the truth. Moors talk a great deal about our ancestors going into Spain in 7-Eleven, but they don't talk about the state of North Africa prior to 7-Eleven. And anyone can just Google search. Anyone can Google search that the state of North Africa was under the Roman, Byzantine, Chalcedonian rulership. And of course there were some sellouts that were in positions of power within the Roman provinces of North Africa, just like today, just like we see all across the world, just like, you know, we see sellouts within our nation. Look at the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, how the colonists are ruling, and then to suppress the Black Panther Party for self-defense, they used one of our own people to murder Fred Hampton. So this isn't anything that's new. And if Moors are honest, they will see that if it weren't for the companions of Prophet Muhammad, we Moors would have still been under Roman control. We would have still been ruled by the Romans. So although Moors tend to boast about our achievements in Al-Andalus, we have to remember that if it weren't for the companions of Prophet Muhammad, we would have still been under Roman control. That is a fact. And when you even look into why Moors went into Al-Andalus, it's because of the same issue of the Byzantine, Chalcedonian, Nicene Creed Romans, who instituted Roderick, who agreed to the Trinity and the Godhead status of Jesus, whereas all the other Visigothic kings didn't. They were Arians. And when the king Witter, or Witte, but in German V's are W's are V's, pronounced as V's, when he died, which ended the long line of Visigothic Arians ruling Al-Andalus, the Roman Byzantines helped put Roderick in charge, and that's why there was an internal conflict within the Visigothic kingdom, and there were certain Arians that requested help from the Muslims because the Muslims had just defeated Rome and all of North Africa. So there is a deep connection between Moors and Islam, and Noble Drew Ali told us this. When you read his historical message to leaders, you'll see where he used the term Moor and the term Mohammedan as interchangeable, which means we Moors were followers of Muhammad, which means we Moors were practicing the teachings that were revealed in the Quran that was revealed by Muhammad. And it's unfortunate that although Moors promote this idea of study, they don't study that. And then in that same piece of literature by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he says that the Quran should be the interest of all Moors, whether from a literary, philosophical, or religious point of view. And when you look up the etymology of the word should, it means command. And Prophet Abu Ali said, all true Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to them by their Prophet. And so that word should was a command directly from our Prophet to read the Quran of Mecca. And there's no doubts about it. And in that same piece of literature, and I did a whole 3-hour lecture on this already, Prophet Abu Ali clearly expressed that he was talking about the Islam as established on the Arabian Peninsula. He uses the words Arabian Peninsula. So there's no doubt as to which book he's talking about. And there's no doubt as to which people he's talking about. And in his 101s, he asked the question, who are the people that embody the higher self? And the answer is those who protect the holy city of Mecca. And there's only one people doing that, and they are Muslims. So if we Moors are to learn about our higher self and lower self, and our Prophet told us that those who embody that are the people of Mecca, well then guess who we should be mimicking? As opposed to making things up, why don't we just emulate what works and what has been working? We have no one to blame but ourselves for not implementing things that work, for not living by principles that have clearly worked. And there has never been a separation of church and state ever in the history of humanity. And the fact that we Moors keep trying to separate it is again part of the reason why we're failing. Because you think that civics is separate from religion when it's not. When you read the Quran as revealed by Prophet Muhammad, you will see that there are several verses and laws in the Quran that deal directly with civic engagement. As an example, when someone is being accused of something, there must be witnesses to testify to the accusations. That is civics. That is law. That is jurisprudence. That is everything that Moors talk about. Law, the right to face your accuser, the right to face the witnesses, cross-examine witnesses, the right to bring forth your own witnesses. That was codified within the Quran. It still is. This idea of having and being judged by a jury of your peers appears in Islam. But the requirement within Islam is that the jurist must know law. So here, we're being judged by people that don't know anything about law. This idea of res judicata, this idea that there is a precedent, this idea that issues have already been litigated, so it makes sense to not waste time to relitigate those issues that have already been decided, that comes from fatwa. It's a non-binding legal decision. Res judicata is also non-binding. There is nothing that, as an example, the Supreme Court of the United States can do to enforce its decisions. It's non-enforceable, just like fatwa. It's just everyone agrees to it, just like a fatwa. So when Moors talk about how former President Barack Hussein Obama went to Egypt and specified that the Constitution is derived from Muslim law is the Quran of Mecca. There's nothing else. There is no other Muslim law. Anything else is fabricated, full of contradictions, full of error, and a detriment to humanity. When we look at the great civilizations established by Moors, It's when we were governing ourselves according to the law of Allah, according to the laws in the Quran, known as Sharia law. During our rule in Al-Andalus, women were doctors and teachers. And since Islam requires men and women to have gender-specific doctors, when the women were giving birth, they had women doctors. So obviously the women would have to be educated. Everything that Moors are looking to establish today, as far as forming our own state, is codified within the Quran. That's exactly what Prophet Muhammad did. They formed their own state, and they used their religious rights to do so, and they defended that state with the military, and they entered into treaties, and they enforced treaties, and Allah gave them instructions on what to do when you enter into a treaty with the people that consistently break that treaty. So there's guidance for all of us. We shouldn't be confused, yet here we are confused. And the only reason why we're confused is because we're rejecting the guidance that we know we need. And we're rejecting it with arrogance. And we like to throw around the word dogma. Yet here we are still, the only people on the planet. The only people on the planet, and I'll say it again, the only people on the planet without our own nation state. Even Israel is making up their own nation state. They're making it up. Yet we can't figure out somehow, with all this real actual guidance that's out there, with all this precedent that's out there, we still can't figure out how to do it ourselves. Even though our ancestors did exactly that. And we talk about that, and we boast about it. Oh, the Moors of 7-Eleven. Oh, the Moors of Spain. Oh, the Moors of Al-Andalus. Why do we keep talking about them and not living how they lived? Why? What's the point? We can't reap what they sowed. They're reaping what they sowed. Which means we have to start doing what? We have to start sowing. And when you sow, when you plant seeds, there are rules to planting seeds. So as we establish ourselves, there are rules to us establishing ourselves. You can't plant a seed that is meant to germinate in the fall, in the spring. If you do, guess what? You won't be reaping that seed because you did it wrong. Because you weren't following instructions. So as we're trying to establish ourselves as a nation state, which is our right guaranteed to us by the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the customs of international law, there are rules and guidelines on how we do so. One of which, and is the main focal point, is a national defense force known as a military or a militia. Same word, same root word. We will never have any form of independence without the ability to defend ourselves. That is a fact. No nation of people on the planet in the history of this planet has ever established themselves as a nation without protecting themselves. And the fact that we Moors are attacked for simply asserting our right to self-determination is proof that we need to defend ourselves. Because apparently there are people that don't believe in that. They don't believe in other people having the right to self-determination. They only believe in forced assimilation. And if we stopped fearing man, we'd be brave enough to just go into the room with these people and have conversations with them. No need to physically fight anybody. We can still train and prepare to defend ourselves because there's a history of our people being attacked by the United States government and their FBI counterintelligence program and their local police forces. There's a history of planned assassinations against our people. So we should be interested in defending ourselves against that. But that doesn't mean we have to overthrow or attack anybody. Our right to self-determination does not mean we need to attack anyone. It just means we have the right to defend ourselves in our pursuit to establish ourselves as a nation of people, which is our right, guaranteed by international law and by the creator of this earth. And that is evidenced in the story of Moses, the story of Joshua, the story of David, the story of Saul, the story of Solomon, the story of Muhammad. All of these people fought to establish their own state and or fought to maintain the independence and sovereignty of their own state. That is a fact. So, like Marcus Garvey said, if other people can do it, then so can we. We just have to stop fearing other things except God. Because when we understand cause and effect, because we don't fear God, we don't have the bravery we need to simply have a conversation with these colonists and say, what you're doing needs to stop. Let's have conversations about you respecting our right to establish our own government. Let's have conversations about your obligation to financially support us according to what President Barack Obama signed into office when he signed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, where you agree that it's your obligation to help us form our own nation state. Let's have conversations like that. The reason why we don't is because we fear them. We fear them more than we fear our God, when our God is in charge of cause and effect, not them. What do we fear them for? What else could they possibly do to us that they're not already doing? What else? There's no excuse. None. And no amount of delusion that we try to deceive ourselves into is ever going to justify our inactivity. Ever. And just like we think about why haven't the generations before us done anything, guess what the next generation is going to think about us? How come all these people, there's evidence of all these people because of social media, bragging about their goddamn intelligence, how come they didn't do shit? That's what the next generation is going to think. Why didn't they just have conversations with these officials? It's not like there's tanks blowing up our houses. It's not like these people are dropping missiles on us. That's not happening. So since that's not happening, why can't we just have conversations with these people? What's the big deal? What's the problem? Why are we so afraid to talk? We can talk online all day, make videos about nonsense. Yet no one had the bright idea, hey, instead of having all these more show up to a barbecue every year, instead of having all these more show up to a music video every few months, how about we show up to this governor's office, schedule a meeting, and have a conversation about our rights as Moors and our status as Moors and the act of state doctrine and how we have the right to form our own separate nation and how the United States is obligated to help us in that effort. It's a simple conversation. And then from that conversation, we'll be able to gauge what to do next. If we're given a favorable reply, well then great. If we're given a not so favorable reply, well then we go back to our little Moorish group and we talk. What the next step is. Either way, we're going to go back to our own groups and talk what the next step is. That's called civic engagement. Everything else is nonsense. If you're not teaching about civic engagement, it's nonsense. And remember, there is no separation of church and state. So if you're not talking about the encouragement or encouraging bravery, encouraging only fearing Allah, and encouraging right conduct, then it's nonsense. And it's nonsense that's going to get us nowhere. Look at all the rap videos out there. How many times have you heard of a Moorish saying, oh, I decided to give charity because I seen a Moorish rap video? Oh, I decided to wear a fez because I seen a Moorish rap video. Oh, I decided to have a meeting with the city officials or state officials because of a Moorish rap video. I've never heard and will never hear anything come out of that, because nothing comes out of it. So let's start encouraging people to do good. Let's start encouraging people to take action. And in that action, to be fearless no matter what opposition you get from these terrorist colonists that you already know are terrorists and colonists. You can't stand up against colonial terrorism and then sit down when the colonial terrorism is right in front of you. It's either you're going to stand up or you're going to submit. That's it. And you don't have to kill people. You don't have to attack people. Just say what you're doing is wrong. But again, when you fear the wrong things, and when you're addicted to the dunya, to the worldly life, you're addicted to the drinking and the smoking and the fornicating, when you're addicted to that, you don't prioritize making actual change. You prioritize your pleasure, which is the lower self, which are the lessons that our Prophet gave us. You prioritize your lower self. You gave up your birthright to be the rulers of this dominion, to be the rulers of your own state, your own free Moorish national government. You gave that up to drink and smoke. You gave that up for fornication. You gave that up for likes on social media. You gave that up to be on your phone and look at whatever you want at all times. You gave that up to glorify your lower self, to sit back and watch TV and eat snacks, as opposed to standing up for the next generation. You gave that up. There are people who believe that they have the right to self-determination. And there are people who believe that they have the right to self-defense. And there are people who believe that no matter what terrorist colonists say to them, or threaten them with, or kidnap them, or torture them, they will never give up on the truth. There are Moors that believe that. And there are Moors that act on that. And then there are those who merely speak about it and do nothing. You need to be very cautious about that. You need to be very wary about that, because that is going to determine our future. If Moors are following people who are idle, meaning not going anywhere, not doing anything, which is exactly what the Quran warns us about, that Noble Jali gave us, or they're going to listen to those who show that they've been down a certain path, that they had conversations with state officials, with city officials, that in the face of severe opposition, not just a stupid parking ticket, they did not fold on the truth and about their prophet, and the truth about the Moorish nation, and the truth about their rights of indigenous people. You could either listen to cowards who will bring you nowhere, or you can listen to brave men and women who will lead us to the destination that is not uncertain nor unknown. The choice is yours. And just understand that with that choice, you have no right to complain. Whatever choice you make, because you made the choice. So if you decide to sit back and glorify your lower self, do not complain about the conditions you are in, because you are doing nothing to change it.